What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Lawyer You Know. We're breaking down day 12 of the Karen Reed trial. Yuri Bukhenik was on the stand, and there's so much to talk about of his testimony, but also what his testimony means potentially for the rest of the trial. We're going to talk about what might happen, how that can affect the defense's presentation of the case, what I would do if I was them, which, we'll see what they do, but I've got some thoughts. And the more I think about potentially them not calling Proctor, not calling the other Alberts, the other McCabe's, a lot of other people involved, Sergeant Lank, I've got some theories and some things I think the defense should do and some things they have to do, depending on how the Commonwealth finishes out their case in chief. We're going to answer your questions. We're going to go through and recap all the testimony today. Make sure you guys hit that like button. Let's get to it. So if you remember from the last trial, Yuri Bukhenik is another officer that was basically Proctor's supervisor / basically his partner doing everything. I almost said partner in crime. That would have probably gone in the wrong direction. But he was basically the guy they tried to call the first trial to tell everything before Proctor came. So Proctor would basically be repeating it. Maybe they're doing that again here. But it seems different this time. This time he is testifying so much more to where Proctor was, what Proctor was doing, and more importantly, what he was not doing around that taillight and some other indications as he was asked questions by the prosecutor, Hank Brennan, in this case. And as we get through his testimony, they go through his background and his experience and how he was an immigrant who went through public school, enlisted in the military, was a military policeman, and has all this great experience, which usually makes a witness pretty likable, right? I think most people would like the type of resume that Yuri Bukhenik has, and we're going to assume that these jurors don't know him and have no real background with him, so they're listening to his testimony, taking it at face value. And he gets into what he did, which can sound like a lot, right? You always have to pair up in a case, right? Why? Why do you have to pair up in a case? Well, because it's dangerous. People can get hurt, they can die, or they can get fired, terminated. I was really surprised they said that. So is that what they're going with? That you always have two people on because you never know when somebody's going to be a complete jerk and get fired and terminated for being biased, sending disgusting texts, and having conduct unbecoming of a police officer. You never know when that's going to happen, so that's why we always have two people on the case. Okay. And Hank Brennan has to get out and has to deal with the Proctor issue with Yuri Bukhenik if he's not going to call Proctor. So I'm going to play some clips so we can discuss how Hank Brennan decided to do that, because make no mistake about it, this is a lawyer strategy decision by Hank Brennan.
Grab something from another trooper and could be approached, and a small brief interview could happen, or if a trooper's at a home talking to a witness and others show up willing to provide information, he has to conduct that interview by himself because of the resources aren't available for him.
Let's talk about the assignment of this case. You said that there's case assignments, a schedule that is made in advance.
Yes, sir.
On the day or the morning of January 29, 2022, do you know who was assigned to take calls for new cases?
Yes. Before 7 a.m. on the 29th, it was Michael Proctor that was assigned to be on call.
And I love how they're like, we didn't want him to have this case. We didn't choose for him to have this case. He just happened to be on call. And they made that as clear as possible. It was just kind of coincidence that Michael Proctor ended up being on call.
Is there a supervisor assigned as well, in addition to a trooper that's not in a superior position?
Yes. Every day there's a supervisor assigned in addition to the on-call trooper. There's a supervisor that's also available for any reason at any time to respond, assist that trooper if there's any questions or issues that come up.
Was there a supervisor assigned that morning?
Yes, there was.
And who was that?
It was myself.
And normally you would think the supervisor working with the other person, the supervisor has more responsibility. The supervisor is the one things go through. The supervisor is the boss. That's just not how it is in this situation. It is clearly not how it is. Proctor was the lead investigator. He was the boss of this investigation. Bukhenik was his supervisor, and then Bukhenik had a supervisor. But from my perspective, it was definitely a strategy to make it seem like this investigation was Yuri Bukhenik, this guy right here, his responsibility. I tried to turn CC on. They are not working on this video right now. Okay. So you can turn the CC on my video, though, if anybody wants to turn on closed captioning. Canton PD stepped away from interviewing people because of a potential conflict. And he said it multiple times, just from interviewing people. Very, very important, because we're going to hear Canton PD officers all over the place doing all sorts of things. He was worried about the manpower. His role became more prominent because of the Canton PD kind of recusing themselves from interviews only. He's a team player, so he did it. Brennan continued to call Michael Proctor Mr. Proctor, not Trooper Proctor, not former Trooper Proctor, not even Michael Proctor, but Mr. Proctor throughout most of this direct examination. And it was loud and clear to everybody that watched trial number 1 and that knows everything about this case. But was it clear to a jury who's just hearing this case for the first time? That's the $1 million question. He talks about how he interviewed the McCabe's and the Alberts. Again, nothing to see here. Totally normal, no issues. And then he said he wanted to see John O'Keefe's injuries himself, which I thought was kind of an interesting way to bring it up. But that's what he did, and we're going to hear his explanation on that.
We got to see Mr. O'Keefe, I would approximate probably like 12:30, maybe 1 o'clock-ish.
Why did you want to see him specifically?
I wanted to see the injuries for myself, the location of the injuries, the types of injuries, the extent of the injuries, and overall condition that his body was in would be very telling. The mechanism of injury, how it might have taken place, and also the correlation of any evidence at the scene with those injuries.
Now, you don't have any medical degrees, do you?
I do not. No.
How about biomechanical engineering?
No.
Do you have life and job experience in these situations?
Yes, 20 plus years of law enforcement investigating car crashes, pedestrian crashes, and 10 years in homicide.
Your role is not to make a diagnosis, is it?
No, it's not.
Is this information?
Thank God, right? Because some of the officers, it's like, trust me. I don't need to go collect that evidence because I already know what it's going to show. Trust me. I got to admit, okay, usually witness demeanor, I get it. You know, sometimes it's people have different personalities, different ways of presenting. Yuri Bukhenik felt a little smug to me. Maybe it's because of Cross and we're going to get there. But this whole time, his like leaning up on the side there, his whole kind of demeanor to me was not great, especially when he has to be the star witness to make sure Proctor is not involved, basically.
And your interpretation based on your experience important in guiding what you're going to do in the investigation?
Yes, it is very.
Do you ultimately get to Good Samaritan Hospital?
Yes, we do.
So he explains the drive over there, and we're going to hear what he actually has to say about the injuries here in a minute.
Seepage of blood into the sheets. There was also swelling, discoloration, a large amount of blood pooling underneath his eyelids. There was no abrasions or injuries that I observed to that region, to me, through my training experience. I took that as a subject.
Not to any medical observations, but just you as
Dr. Bukhenik, cool it. Okay, cool it. It's like some of them can't help themselves. Some of the officers can't help themselves, but to just push on their testimony and what they can and can't testify to.
Yes, Your Honor.
I'd ask you not to give your personal interpretations of what you saw. Rather, I want you to share with the jury what you saw through your view.
There was also a tiny cut laceration to the eyelid area.
You're pointing to your right eye. Could you
Yes.
specifically?
Also on the left nostril, there was a very, very small laceration there. Both were not actively bleeding. There were a series of cuts and bruises to the right arm.
Cuts and bruises, okay? These words are important. Definitions are important, like we always say. And he says cuts and bruises, which seems more like what it would seem like if you got hit by a car. You'd have cuts and bruises all over you, broken bones, swelling probably, not just on your arm. There'd be other places. And the way he explains it, scratch, cut on his face, definitely not from a fight, more like a car accident. He doesn't say that, but scratches and cuts on his knee, definitely trying to describe it in a way that sounds like somebody got hit by a car.
Which extended from approximately mid forearm up to the mid tricep area of Mr. O'Keefe, and they were concentrated on the exterior of the arm. There was no other injury or marks on the interior or inside of the arm. There was also a bruise on that same arm on the back of the hand. It was light in color. It wasn't a profound discoloration as the eyes appeared to me. There were also injuries to abrasion or cut scrapes to the knee, I believe.
Which knee?
The right knee. I apologize.
You had first described.
And that helps because Karen Reed, in a lot of her statements, says things like, could I have clipped him in the knee? Could I have run over his foot? Could I have just hit him and incapacitated him in some way? And so they're trying to feed that testimony in. And you have to remember, the jurors are listening to this in real time. They don't have all the context we have. So that sounds like it's all lining up, which creates a scenario where the defense has to poke those major big holes that we all remember from the first trial that the jury has not seen yet this trial. Emily, gifting 20 memberships. Thank you, Emily. Emily's in the chat. You guys are in for a treat if she's in the chat talking, answering some questions. A lot of you guys, if you guys were watching all day with Emily, let me know with a purple heart in the chat if you were watching with EDB all day.
Swelling in the right eye, and then you had just said the eyes. Could you be specific? Was the swelling in one or both eyes when you saw Mr. O'Keefe?
When I saw Mr. O'Keefe, the swelling was in both eyes. It might not have been exactly symmetrical, but there was swelling, discoloration in both eyelids of Mr. O'Keefe. There was also blood pooling in the cavity of the eyeball, both sides of the eyeballs.
Do you know about what time it was that you visited Mr. O'Keefe and made these observations?
It was sometime between 12:30, 1 o'clock, and 2 o'clock, I would assume.
And that's when they gathered the clothing. That's when they bagged it. It was soaking wet. And because of the missing shoe and the fact that Karen Reed said, I hit him, made him interested in the vehicle. Okay. So multiple times throughout his testimony, he and Hank Brennan prepared to make sure to say all this evidence pointed towards a car accident, pointed towards Karen Reed. We've got the injuries to John Sir seem like a car accident. We've got the broken taillight that we're going to talk about, the missing shoe, the I hit him. They're trying to line it all up, simplify it, and make it make sense. That's what they're trying to do here. And of course, he throws in the P word. He and Proctor were there together, doing this together. And when they get there to look at the vehicle, they both notice, I don't know how he notices or knows what Proctor notices, a large piece of red taillight missing. Brennan says, how sure are you about this? 100% sure, which is exactly what you're not supposed to do, is bolster your witness and say, are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. Not supposed to do that, but that's what they did. Then when he says a large piece of taillight, Brennan asks a follow-up question and makes sure to repeat, okay, so you said you saw a large piece of red taillight missing.
Michael.
Let me stop you with what you said. I want to just know what you observed.
Okay.
As you're walking up the driveway, how close to that SUV did you get at its closest?
At its closest, I got as close as me and a defense table, which is probably 10 to 12 feet.
From the 10 to 12 feet, did you notice anything remarkable about the SUV?
Yes, there was a large piece of red taillight cover missing from the vehicle.
After you made an observation of a large piece of the red taillight cover missing, did you do anything else relative to the SUV at that time?
Yes, I told Michael to get close.
I'm not interested in what he did. What did you do? What did you see?
I just saw the damaged, missing taillight cover. I did not touch it. We did not approach it with physical contact. So,
did you see where Michael Proctor went?
Yes.
How?
They didn't touch it and they didn't approach it. He made sure to say that, right? That they didn't touch it and they didn't approach it. Netwoman, 50 memberships. I have a feeling it's going to be a lot of new Lawyer You Know members today. Make sure you've got the gifted memberships option turned on. Thank you so much, Netwoman. Awesome. Love to see it. Love to see a lot of new people added to the crew. All right. I'm going to listen to a little more of this.
How close to the car or the vehicle did he get?
Within 3 feet.
Did he ever touch it?
No.
Where did you and Michael Proctor go next?
We proceeded to the front door of the home to make contact with the residents.
And how clearly did you see that missing piece? What's your level of certainty?
100%.
Did you knock on the?
That's just not it's not an appropriate question, in my opinion. All right, we're going to jump ahead a little bit to the statements Karen Reed made to Bukhenik and Proctor.
From when you were in the living room, you're beginning conversation with the defendant, the presence of both her father and mother, you're with Mr. Proctor. Can you share with us the conversation that you had with the defendant?
Yes. She stated that she's willing to answer our questions, but she didn't want to go into too many details. That's how the conversation began. She provided us the fact that Mr. O'Keefe was hanging out with a friend of his at 5 p.m. at the One Meadows Ave residence, following which he proceeded to C.F. McCarthy's in Canton, where the defendant stated that she met him approximately at 9 p.m. She was drinking vodka sodas. Mr. O'Keefe was consuming Bud Light beer. After C.F. McCarthy's, they proceeded to the Waterfall Grill and Bar. At this point, the defendant was asked if she brought a beverage with her from C.F. McCarthy's to the Waterfall establishment, to which she stated she didn't think so. After the Waterfall, the defendant stated that she dropped Mr. O'Keefe off at 34 Fairview. She was asked if she saw him go in the house. She stated no, she did not see him go in the house. She was asked about the damage to her rear taillight, to which she stated, quote, "I don't know how I did it last night," end quote.
Again, I don't know how I did it last night.
She provided us with the fact that she dropped him off and never saw him go in the house. She was asked to provide
She never dropped him off and never saw him go in the house.
details about her leaving. She stated that she made a 3-point turn and left. She was asked to provide some explanation of how Mr. O'Keefe sustained those injuries that he had. She did not.
Let me stop you there. Did you get an answer to your question about how he sustained the injuries or the details about the 3-point turn?
No, I did not.
You mentioned that when you were at Good Samaritan Hospital, you saw blood on the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head.
Yes.
Did you ask the defendant anything about that injury?
Yes, we asked about the injuries that Mr. O'Keefe had, that he had been displaying, and whether or not he had those injuries the night prior at either McCarthy's or Waterfall, to which the defendant stated she didn't see any injuries on him. But then she provided a statement saying that Mr. O'Keefe bumped his head 2 nights prior and asked her about it, which to me it seemed kind of strange. But
without the commentary,
Brendan's like, we don't need the commentary. To him, it seems strange. It does seem strange. I don't know what that has to do with anything that she mentioned that, but he said it. Then he talks about seizing her phone and car. It was very weird. Like, sounded like they may have violated some of Karen Reed's rights. That was kind of strange. I don't know if anybody on the jury is going to pick up on that. Then they did seize the vehicle. They, of course, loaded it, never touched it. Proctor never touched the vehicle. Proctor never touched it. Proctor never got close enough to touch it. Proctor didn't put his hands on the vehicle. Proctor definitely didn't break the light. They made sure to say that over and over again. He had no worries bringing it to Canton, even though they were off the case, because they were just off the interviews. No problem. And Proctor and he went into the Sally Port with the video or with the car. And again, no problems, didn't touch it, no worries, nothing. So one of my things that Brennan highlights so much about this taillight, how important it is. Are you 100% certain? All of that, right? They never took a picture of it. Like, we would have no issues if you just would have immediately taken a picture of it. Take a picture of it before anybody stands next to it. And that's the other thing is, he left the hospital in his mind. He said he left the hospital thinking this was a car accident where Karen Reed hit John O'Keefe with her car. The injuries match up. She said, I hit him, and he shows up and there's a broken taillight. If that's true, why would you not document it immediately? You took a picture of everything else when it happened, right? Why would you not take a picture of that? The other people that were like, well, we didn't really think it was that at the time, that's why we didn't take a picture, that at least tracks. This doesn't track if he thinks that's what it is. Let me hit some questions here. Michelle, my fiance wants to know what hair products you use. Y'all have similar hair. P.S. First super chat, but longtime lurker. Appreciate your insight always. It's called Layrite, and it's like cream. It's some kind of like hair cream. It's not like a gel. It's not like super like crunchy or like hard. Like, my hair is not hard. It still feels pretty, but it tames it for sure. All right, bingo bango. What would you charge for 10 plus people conspiring to cover up a M and framing somebody else, or is it an individual charge? It would be some kind of conspiracy. And are you trying to prove that they actually committed the crime, or they just planted things to make sure somebody else got popped for it? It would be some kind of a conspiracy, but we need more details and proof to get deeper than that. Sarah, hey, Peter, thanks for all you do. When the state calls their accident reconstructionist expert, can the defense bring up Trooper Paul's abysmal testimony last trial? And why did the state change their theory this time? They may not be able to say, why did the state change their theory this time? But I would ask them about that theory. Is that possible? Is that scientifically, mathematically possible that that's how this accident happened? Because you would agree there's no way. That wouldn't line up. That wouldn't go that way. And then I'd be like, that's what Trooper Paul said. Do you know Trooper Paul? Have you read Trooper Paul's report? He was the accident reconstructionist for the Commonwealth before you were. Then you may call Trooper Paul and be like, what happened, Trooper Paul? Tell us how this happened. You testified at the last proceeding and said this. There's a lot of different things you can do. You have to make the determination as the defense, and we're going to talk a lot about that in this video. Can't the defense move to allow their expert to testify to rebut all the BS YB testify to? You mean the investigator? I think they can try, but I think based on Judge Cannoni's prior ruling, she knew how this testimony was going to come out. She said it's perfectly fine for cops to talk about it in the investigation, and it's common knowledge for jurors to know good and bad police work. Anthony, if the defense has to call Proctor, can they still introduce the text messages? My perspective, right? What I would try to do is say, Mr. Proctor or former Trooper Proctor, you said this about Karen Reed. You said this about Karen Reed. You said this about Karen Reed. And if they say, oh, that's self-serving hearsay, you can say you were biased, right? And there's proof you were biased because you called her X, Y, and Z. And we're not even saying that for the truth of the matter asserted. We're saying it to show your bias, your state of mind at the time you were investigating our client's case. There are findings that the board found about you. Conduct unbecoming of an officer. Let's talk about some of that. Showing bias in an investigation. Let's talk about some of that. And I think you can get into, I think that should open up the door to basically everything Proctor did. Now, will Judge Cannoni allow it? I don't know. Ashley D, should AJ ask about the inverted video being a fair and accurate representation? Win-win for the defense, right? He said yes last time. So these are the decisions that they're going to have to make as the defense. How much do you want to get into? How many details? How many things do you want to impeach on? How clunky is it going to be? What does it actually prove? So you put the video up and you say, this is the left taillight, not the right taillight, right? Or whatever. You walk right by it. Proctor walks right by the right taillight, doesn't he? And you weren't there, so you couldn't see what he was doing. You think this is a fair and accurate representation. He would say, no, it's not. I was confused. I thought it was inverted. But last time you said it was, yeah, I was confused. Now I realize it's inverted. It doesn't change anything I testified about. The way Bukhenik was acting on cross, I think he would downplay it, play dumb. I'm not sure how much it would hit. So those are the types of things you got to bounce off each other as lawyers and determine whether you think it's worth it. Can AJ ask Yuri Bukhenik if he's worried about also being fired to show bias in his testimony? If I was Bukhenik, I'd say, no, I'm not worried about getting fired. You got to always think, you're assuming he's going to answer the way you want him to answer, right? When you ask certain questions, but that's not always how it goes. Why do you think John O'Keefe's shirt was in glass, but the pants were not? Also, where does everyone stand during the sidebar? Court layout is weird with the three in front of Bev. I'm not sure. I think they go around to the opposite side of where the witness stand is, but I'm not positive. I don't know. I actually think that's a better form of presentation, putting it in the frame. I saw some pretty great memes today on that as well. But I think it was a better form of presentation than it was in the past. I don't know why the jeans weren't used like that. James Hughes, what's going on, Pete? What do you make of / if anything of Alessi sitting next to Karen Reed today, pushing David Yannetti to the outside? Daily strategy thoughts? I'm really not sure. It's a good question. I know when we do it, certain lawyers will sit with and strategize, talk to the client, keep them in the loop, answer their questions as it's going. I'm not sure why they would do that today. Azam, Peter, is it common for an attorney to cut the witness off from answering questions like, stop, I only want to know this or that? Or is the defense, whether it's during direct or cross? So for the defense, yes, it's like, chill. I just want a yes or no answer. Just answer my question. For the prosecutor, it's not as common, but because of the dance that Hank Brennan and Yuri Bukhenik are trying to do, where basically Yuri Bukhenik is trying to testify to everything Michael Proctor did, sometimes you have to be like, whoa. It's not we, it's just what you did, what you saw. Because he kept saying, we did this, we did this, we did this. Don't testify about what Michael Proctor was thinking or doing. What did you do? And then what did you see him do? That's it. So that's unusual because of what they're trying to do. Shocker, this trial has something unusual happening. No surprise there. This is not normal. This is not normal. Okay, actually, that's a great segue, Peter. Good job. You're a pro. This is going to be a little snippet of him saying we and kind of giggling and being like, sorry, members of the jury, these pesky dumb rules. I don't actually mean we, I just mean me. Rebecca, thank you so much for gifting 20 memberships. That's wild.
Until 5:51 and change, based on the rest of my memory.
After you left the Sallyport area, where did you go?
We left the Sally. I apologize.
Go ahead. If you can say first what you did and then wait for the next question, please. Sir.
I left.
Judge Canoni's picked up on it by now. It's like, first what you did, then tell us what Michael Proctor did. I'm sorry. I mean, then you can tell us what you saw. It's like everybody knows what's going on. Lazy L, I don't think so. I don't think so, but I've been surprised in this trial already.
The Sallyport area and proceeded inside the Canton Police Department.
Where was Mr. Proctor?
He was with me.
By your side?
Yes.
Did he ever leave your sight?
By your side? Was he right by your side the whole time? Did he ever leave your sight? Like, is Proctor his dog? Like, very weird questions. Did he ever leave your sight? Did Proctor touch that? Did he put his fingers on that?
I'm sure at some point he walked away from me, but I can't.
So you admit you didn't see everything Mr. Proctor was doing.
We're traveling together all day.
You went into a different part of the Canton Police Department?
Yes.
Where did you go?
Into the dispatch area, and then the conference room upstairs later on.
Why did you go up to the conference room?
All right, so then they go back to 34 Fairview looking for the missing baseball hat. He said the bag of clothing, I guess, was with him. More on that later. He keeps saying we over and over again. The clothing took several days to dry out. Is that weird in the snow? That seems weird that it would take several days. I could just be wrong. He bagged it, put it in evidence. And then we start talking about the sneaker, which was a big point of contention here. I'm going to play it and we'll talk about it.
Trooper, is that the sneaker that was at the hospital when you visited Mr. O'Keefe?
No, so this is the sneaker from 34 Fairview.
Can I have that marked?
Okay. That's the right sneaker that was at the hospital, not the left sneaker that was at 34 Fairview. So that's wrong, confusing. I know a lot of people are saying different color soles. Why is it so clean? So many questions. I don't know. They objected. They went to the sidebar. Eventually, I think he ends up correcting it, saying this was at the hospital, and it is obviously his right sneaker, not his left sneaker. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. People have sent me things. Definitely looks fishy. I don't know. I'm not a detective. You guys are better at doing that than I am. We'll see what the defense brings out about it. That's really all I can say about the sneaker, but it definitely smells fishy. Definitely smells fishy to me. He went back to 34 Fairview multiple times, and he keeps saying for the hat specifically. But I was also thinking about this. If you said the I hit him part, you saw his injuries, you thought it looked like a car accident and a car hit him, and you see the broken taillight. If you have all that and you saw what's missing on the taillight and you see the few pieces that have been found, why wouldn't you go back looking for more taillight pieces? Because you would know from looking at it that that's not all the taillight pieces, right? Is that logical if you're a detective? It feels logical. They look for 45 to 60 minutes. They find a bunch of pieces. He shows them a bunch of pieces. They find the hat frozen flat under 1.5 feet of snow. And then, again, as far as Hank Brennan goes, I think this was good strategy. He's showing the jury a picture of all this snow, 2.5 feet of snow. And he's like, okay, so we saw that snow. So is that why you kind of had to keep coming back and waiting for more evidence to reveal itself? Because there was so much snow.
Did you search the entire front lawn at that time?
No, we did not.
And we can see from those photographs, is there still snow in that yard?
Yes.
As you continued your investigation, did you continue to go back to Fairview over time?
Yes, based on the amount of snow still present and the fact that we were finding pieces of broken taillight and glass at the scene, and items that we did not expect to find, like a cocktail glass straw. I directed my members to go by the scene every day as the temperatures rose. Snow would expose more evidence on the lawn, and with the hopes of finding each and every item that was present.
On February 4th, the next day, 2022, did you receive a call?
Yes, I did.
Not what was said, but who was that call from?
I believe it was,
I don't want you to guess if you don't know. Was the person a member of any group?
yes,
From what group?
it was Canton Police.
As a result of receiving a call from the Canton Police, or someone from the Canton Police on February 4th, 2022, did you go anywhere?
I was already en route to 34 Fairview to conduct a directed check of the area.
Would you say as you read the check, did you drive by every day on your way to work?
I told my members on every day to work and home to make sure someone's checking the lawn, make sure that any evidence that exposes itself through the melting snow would be identified and collected.
As you were on your way there, you received a call from someone from the Canton Police?
Yes,
Did you arrive at 34 Fairview on February 4th, 2022?
I did.
When you got there, did you see any more items?
Yes, I did.
How many?
One item, a larger in size red taillight piece had revealed itself, and it was collected.
Had revealed itself. So it continues to reveal itself.
Could you produce 710, please?
Yes, sir.
All right, we're not going to watch the evidence presentation again. Found the items, documented it, photographed it. He's not sure who he was with a couple of times, which I thought was interesting during direct, like with Hank Brennan. He's like, I'm not sure who I was with. It's like, could it have been Proctor? It was probably Proctor, right? Like, that seems pretty obvious. He also received the Ring camera videos. All right, and then we're about to get into some Michael Proctor talk, so let me answer some questions here. The ghost of Brian Higgins SIM card. Peter, a reporter said what struck her last year was the thickness of the sweatshirt. This year it's in plexiglass. Same with the t-shirt. Can the defense ask to remove the sweatshirt from the plexiglass? Potential ethical issue. I think they probably can, or they could have objected to it being in there if they thought it was going to alter the state that it was in for the evidentiary value. I don't know if that's something that's going to be overly important in this case. Anise, so the shoe that they took the picture of from the crime scene has a black bottom, and the shoe that they showed yesterday today is a white bottom, two different shoes. No one else noticed. I see a lot of that going around. I don't know what to make of it at this point. Bob Jr. Hi, Peter. What's up, Bob? Heard AJ refer to Proctor as former trooper. Can they bring up why he's former trooper? Yes. That's such a big part of this. Will the defense call Proctor? Thank you for all your coverage. I think they will call Proctor. I think they have to call Proctor if the Commonwealth really doesn't. It seems wild to me that they wouldn't, but from my perspective, absolutely I would call him. John said I'd steer clear of Proctor entirely. AJ will dominate him. I get why the Commonwealth wants to limit his role. Why even bring him up if you're the Commonwealth? What would the risk versus reward be in your opinion? The risks are, this is the guy who interviewed every witness. This is the guy who did all the reports, who did all the search warrants, who signed all the affidavits, who collected all the evidence, who went there by himself and did a lot of things by himself. And for you to act like he is such a cancer that you can't even call him and ask him questions, I will tell you most jurors will see that as a problem. That alone could be reasonable doubt. That is the risk. Now, if he's a jerk and you put him up there and you're like, you were a jerk, you did stupid things, you got fired, but you still collected the evidence, right? The evidence was there. It didn't affect your ability to do X, Y, and Z, and they hear it from him first, then he gets crushed on cross. I don't think you're saving much by not calling him. Somebody asked a question. What are the limitations when the defense calls Michael Proctor? So it depends on Judge Canoni. So she could say, you can't lead him. He's not a hostile witness, which would be a joke. Like he's the definition of a hostile witness, but whatever. If she says that, then you ask questions like, you were fired, right? Why? And if he doesn't give you everything, you impeach him. You said all sorts of horrible things about Karen Reed, right? What'd you say? Who'd you say it to? That's conduct unbecoming of an officer. That's disgusting, right? You should get fired for that, right? Oh, you disagree? Let's look at what the board said about you. And you can impeach him with a lot of the details. You were the lead investigator on this case. People answered to you. Or who was the lead investigator on the case? Who did people have to answer to? You might have to ask them open-ended. I don't think that would be appropriate. I don't think that would be fair. Azam, I saw a post on X showing HB and Judge C exchanging looks, and they speculated they could have had some secret. I don't know that, because I heard people saying stuff that they were saying certain things, and that's not what I heard at all. So I don't want to speculate on that just because I don't really know what they were saying. I don't know if they're going to put the Sally Port video into evidence. I don't. It was kind of like a jaw-dropping moment of the first trial. Will it have the same effect now? I don't know. The real Big John, if a car hits a man hard enough to kill him, it shouldn't be there more damage to the car. Maybe that's not relevant, but just a thought. John, it's like the most relevant. The damage done to John O'Keefe in the car are the biggest reasonable doubts, in my opinion, in this entire case. Rebecca, what was the big mistake on that sneaker? He initially said that it came from the house, and then he said it came from the hospital. They never explained it when they came back from their half-hour break. To me, it's one of those things, like when we do this, it's like, oh, we screwed something up. Let's not confuse the jury. The defense saying, yeah, we agree it's a mismark or something. I don't know. Maybe the defense will bring it up on cross. Maybe Judge Canoni wouldn't allow an instruction and said, you can cross on that, Mr. Jackson. There's still some unknown. We'll wait till the defense is done with cross before we jump into that anymore. All right, let's get to some Proctor talk.
If you would consent to provide your DNA,
Yes, I was. Yes.
is that uncommon in investigations?
It's not common, but situations do arise where you're asked to do that. So it's not the first time that's happened, but it has happened before where a law enforcement individual officer has to provide DNA, and they consent.
Did you?
Yes, I did.
Did you review any other materials in this case? Did you review any reports?
I did review reports, yes.
Did you write reports in this case?
So, Lori, I think he should have been allowed to testify if you're talking about the investigation expert. So, door open or not, like we knew it was coming, and that's why he was relevant. So to say the door is open, to me, something different should have had to happen. I don't think any of the testimony has been a surprise to Judge Canoni about the investigation. And she still said no. That's the issue.
Yes, I did.
Now, I want to ask you about Michael Proctor. You had told us that you were working on this investigation with him.
Yes, I was.
Are you still working on this investigation with him?
No, I'm not.
You were Michael Proctor's supervisor?
Yes, I was.
When you work for the state police, you have a personal phone and a phone that is provided to you by the state police?
Yes.
The state police phone, is that a work phone?
Yes, it is.
What type of information do you receive on that phone?
You can receive communications via email, text message, cell phone tower, voice communications.
Okay. Do officers communicate with each other at times on those work phones?
Yes, they do.
And during that time, did you have a work phone that you were using for communications?
Yes, I did.
At some point, did you receive or were you placed on an email chain that included Michael Proctor and others?
I believe it was a text chain.
I'm sorry, a text chain.
Yes.
Were you included on a text chain involving Michael Proctor and others?
Yes, I was.
Did you receive a text or a text chain from Michael Proctor and other people?
Yes, I did.
And when you received a text, do you remember where you were when you received the text chain?
The specific one you're referring to, I was at the Logan Airport working a traffic detail.
When you received that text, a text chain, did you respond?
I acknowledged the text. I did not respond with verbiage.
And then during that text chain, did you look at the entire text chain?
No, the text message came through on my Apple Watch as I was controlling traffic. I glanced at it.
Of course, I couldn't see all of the deplorable things that were being spoken about. It was just on my, my little Apple Watch. Look, jury, how small this Apple Watch screen is. You can't possibly see an entire text on there. And I just decided to thumbs up my buddy's text because, of course, I didn't really read what it was. That's how they try to deal with this. By the way, we haven't gotten here on cross yet. These are the things I can't wait for Alan Jackson to dig into.
Took part of the information that came through and acknowledged it with a thumbs up emoji.
Acknowledged it. Acknowledged it or liked it, right? Okay is acknowledging it. Thumbs upping it is usually liking it, Trish. This was one of them. And then there's a bunch of moments on cross we're going to get to as well.
Indicating that I read it.
At some point, did you learn everything that was on that text chain?
Yes,
And as a result of that text chain, was there an investigation?
there was.
And during that investigation, you were Michael Proctor's supervisor?
I was.
After the investigation was done, did the state police make any finding against you for that text chain?
Yes, there were 2 sustained findings as a result of that investigation.
Did you initiate that text chain?
No, I don't believe so.
You did react with a thumbs up?
I acknowledged the text message that he sent, or portion of the information that came through on my watch.
And the 2 sustained findings against you, were one of them for failure to adequately supervise?
Yes,
And the other, was it regarding a routine or regular review that it didn't consider that text chain? I'll rephrase.
Okay.
That second sustained finding, was it regarding a review of the performance level of Mr. Proctor?
that's correct.
Sustained is 2 full.
Was there a second sustained finding?
Yes, there was.
Did it relate to the review process of a subordinate?
Sustained is 2 full.
What was that?
By the way, if you're wondering what the form is, he is literally giving him the answer in the question. The sustained finding was for this. Question is, what is the sustained finding? Why did you get docked 5 vacation days?
Second sustained finding about?
The accuracy of the review of the quarterly performance evaluation.
You said quarterly. How often would you write reviews for subordinates?
Every 90 days.
Was there any other sustained finding against you?
No,
Was there punishment in light of those 2 sustained findings against you?
there was.
And what was that punishment?
I lost 5 vacation days.
Do you presently work in the homicide division of the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office?
I do.
Are you currently a sergeant?
I am.
It's like, yeah, you lost 5 vacation days. No big deal. 2 sustained findings for a cop. No big deal. I'm still doing great. Still here, still doing great. Sweep that right under the rug. By the way, let's not forget that, was it O'Hara or Gallagher? It was Gallagher that was like, I can't ask for a search warrant with not enough information. That would crush my credibility. I'll end up on a list. Nobody would believe me when I testified anymore. Yuri Bukhenik enters the chat. Will the jury remember that? I would have asked those questions to Gallagher. I would have been like, what if you have sustained findings against you? Is that bad? What if you get terminated? Is that bad? I would have dug into that. I would have asked him a ton of questions on that because he opened the door to it.
Have you ever reviewed that entire?
We're going to jump ahead to when he actually reviews it the right time because he had to like stop and then start it again.
No, it does not. I assume it's an extraction from one device, but
I see. If you've made any of the comments yourself, would you tell us?
if I made those comments,
No, if you make any of them in here as you read them, will you point out if you?
absolutely, absolutely, yes.
I'm fully electric, King Pine, but I'll see you in a couple days.
Okay. And if you don't know who made the comment, can you just identify that for us as you read it so we know?
Okay, do you want me to continue the next page?
Why don't we start over because I should have been more clear in my direction. Could you begin again?
So in the beginning, it says, funny, I'm going through his retarded client's phone.
Is that your comment?
No, it is not.
Okay, next.
It appears to be the same person because of the way that the extraction happens, and it says no nudes so far. Again, this, I believe it's the same person because all of these identified as sent. It says, I hate that man. I truly hate him.
Do you have any belief that's Michael Proctor who was writing these?
It's about as good as you can read text to try to downplay them and make them not sound like that big of a deal. Don't worry. Alan Jackson will highlight them and the nature of those texts for the jury to make sure they fully understand what was just said there. And oh, there's so much more. What up, Runkle? Runkle in the chat too. Celebrity chat tonight.
Yes, I believe that is.
Next, please.
There's a blank page, and that's the end. Yes.
Did you say you were suspended 5 days or lost 5 days vacation?
Lost 5 days of vacation.
I didn't understand that follow-up question. Like you wanted to say it again? You already said it. Why would you bring that up again? I didn't understand that.
And have you continued on your cases?
Yes, I have.
I want to go back to the evidence that you reviewed in this case.
Okay.
So this next question he asks him, I thought, if I was Alan Jackson, I'm writing this down, taking a note here. And I hate when we have to break up Cross so we don't know his whole cross. I'm sure he's going to get into this, but he hasn't yet, I don't believe. Write all this down because this is good. And what Yuri Bukhenik says right now is what everybody wishes they would have done in this case.
Did you get to look at the ring video for John O'Keefe's home at Meadows?
Yes, I did.
Did you review the video over a period of time of January 28th and January 29th?
I did.
What were you looking for?
We were looking for activity to get a timeline. During investigations, different sources provide you information that can develop into leads. It also helps verify witness statements. It helps verify information that's coming in. We always trust, or we always verify the information that we take in from individuals we do not know. So although it could be a
That's why you want to get the camera from the next door neighbor, because you trust, but you verify. You verify what witness statements say with other evidence and other witness statements. You don't just take what somebody says and run with it and turn your whole case into that. But that's what they did far too often in this case.
Cooperating witness, you still have to verify that their information is accurate. Not that they're from individuals we do not know. So although it could be a cooperating witness, you still have to verify that their information is accurate. Not that they might be intentionally misleading you, but 3 people can watch the same event and observe it differently. So it's good to talk to individuals and pick up on different facts that they remember, giving you a whole picture of what took place.
I would agree. I would agree. Would you guys in the chat agree that that's a good idea and that's exactly what should happen? Then he shows a bunch of the ring video, who shows up, who leaves, maybe Karen's car hitting John. You know, we're not going to watch it here. Everybody's got their thoughts on whether or not it hit, and I get it. And we'll continue to talk about that. Then the CF McCarthy's video. I do think, so they show the photos of the broken taillight. He says it's 100% consistent. They show a picture close up later with where it actually is broken and all the pieces are missing. He says that's exactly what it looked like that night. At this point, I do think that it probably is. I think there are probably some jurors that believe that taillight is fully broken. How did it break? What happened? I don't know. I also think, based on the CF McCarthy's and Waterfall video and drink after drink after drink and Karen Reed's statements, that the jury probably believes Karen Reed was over the legal limit when she was driving that night. I do believe that. I think there are probably some jurors, they have proven that too. I don't know how they could have possibly proven to a single person so far that John O'Keefe was hit by a car, right? All they really have is the I hit him. So there are people asking in the chat, and we're going to get to it. Are they going to call an accident reconstructionist? They have to. They have to call an accident reconstructionist. He also explains how the accident reconstructionists they have in this case are not part of the MSP, Massachusetts State Police, but they are a separate and hired company. And that is the end of the direct examination. So then we get Alan Jackson's cross-examination. But first, let's answer some questions. He kept responding to AJ's questions with explanations for police procedure and how it was correct. Door open to defense expert, if not, good appellate issue. There's a lot of questions about this, and you're preaching to the choir. I thought this guy already should have been able to testify. I don't think they should have had to wait for a door to be open because we all knew it was going here. Is the defense trying to say the warrants were not obtained legally? No, I think the defense is trying to say, and we're about to get there, that, whoa, Proctor was just kind of on the outskirts. He was minimally involved in this. It's like, really, was he? His name's on this. His name's on that. His name's on this. He talked to this witness. He gathered this piece of evidence. I thought it was great strategy. Lazy L, when is the defense just going to ask why they don't take pictures of the car when it's seized? I don't think they did last time. I feel like there have been some questions about that, but now I'm not sure. James F., my wife calls you that lawyer guy you watch, paid for this chat to say you kind of look a young Walter Goggins. I don't know who that is. Take that however you will. Keep sticking up for the rights of everyone. James, you better believe I'll do that. And I'll have to look up who Walter Goggins is after this. Abby Palmer, if the Commonwealth doesn't call the Alberts and Higgins, does that preclude the defense from introducing third-party culprit? No, the defense can still call them. I don't know if I would. I really don't know if I would call them. I think I would probably call Higgins. I would definitely 100% call Proctor. You have to call Proctor. The bad thing you do, and if I wasn't recapping and showing clips, I'd really dig in and talk about this for a while. Maybe my dad and I can talk about it on the podcast this week. The dangers of calling them, right? The dangers of calling them is your direct doesn't hit like it should. And every single one of them gets up there and for a quick cross, if I was Hank Brandon, I'd be like, you were at the house from this hour to this hour, right? John O'Keefe never walked in, did he? You didn't cover this up, did you? You didn't lie to anybody, did you? You're a cop. You wouldn't lie, right? And then sit down. Tight. Keep it a bunch of good stuff for you. Jennifer Raynaud. Did you see that both shoes shown were the same foot, but supposedly two different pieces of evidence? Yes. I saw that there are issues with that, but again, I think the lawyers are dealing with it. Fireman, we'll see. If they do more about it, we'll do more about it, but they just kind of said, oh, just correction, this was found at the hospital. Peter, if you were the prosecutor and you heard your witness answering the defense like Yuri was, would you let him continue acting like that, or would you tell them to stop? I don't represent them. I wouldn't jump in and tell them to stop. If I was prepping them, I'd be like, don't be a jerk. Don't be evasive. Don't fight about everything. That's how I prep witnesses. Just be honest, do your best. There's going to be some bad answers that come out. Karen, I was asked today, how come John O'Keefe's phone never registered steps activity after he was allegedly killed, at least maimed at the house and brought inside? I did not know the answer. Love your show. Karen, I just asked the same question yesterday. That is a big hurdle for the conspiracy. How was there no data for his phone moving afterwards? All right, let's get to some cross. Proctor was the lead investigator. Yuri was like, I wouldn't say leader. He goes through some of their responsibilities, search warrants. Bukhenik says not every team has a leader. They go through military, because I think Jackson's military too. And they're like, well, that's a military term. This is what we do in military. Did this team have a leader? Yes, it was Michael Proctor. Gathering evidence the right way is important to lead to the right suspects. Of course, yes. But sometimes tough decisions are made. And then he explains that. And then they start to get into how important the integrity of an investigation is. Let's listen to this ironic back and forth.
Group putting their heads together and deciding on that. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
Not really.
That's the most
Let's try it again.
accurate explanation.
Okay, you done?
I am.
Okay, let's try that again. You want to make sure that the evidence, as a supervisor, supervising your subordinates, you want to make sure that the evidence is gathered in an appropriate way, in an objective way, correct? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. You're also doing everything you can as a supervisor and someone with the experience to make sure that the highest levels of integrity and those demands are met in any investigation that you work on.
If there was a question of integrity, those individuals would not be part of an investigation.
That includes knowing, obviously, what your subordinates are doing.
During the conduct of the investigation, during the process of us investigating a crime, yes, we know what is going on, because every bit of information that comes in needs to be shared, and we need to make sure.
Yeah, but that's not the question, right? That's very clearly not the question being asked. Paul Printed Heart, that's awesome. That's really cool.
The whole team is aware of all the evidence and information that is available to us at the time.
You want to make sure that, I'm going to use a colloquial phrase, you keep tabs on those who are reporting to you, correct? What are they doing? What are they engaged in? When are they coming and going? Who are they interviewing? Things of that nature. Basic investigative things, correct?
For the most part, you can't track every single person all the time, but this is a very serious line of work. A lot depends on it. We speak for those that can no longer speak for themselves. So we do our best to conduct every investigation with integrity, honor, and get to the truth.
I agree, sir. I agree wholeheartedly. Honor, integrity, and get to the truth.
Don't properly supervise, and I'm talking about your role now as a supervisor. If you don't properly engage in that supervision, it obviously increases chances for mistakes. It increases chances for bias to seep in. It increases chances that something could affect the adequacy of the investigation, correct?
That's a lot there. Can you repeat that, please? Maybe one section at a time?
Sure. If you don't properly supervise your subordinates in an investigation, failing to properly supervise them could increase the chances that mistakes are made. Isn't that right?
Yes, that is one possibility.
Okay, let's break it down. It also increases chances that there could be inherent biases that are seeping into the case that you want to make sure doesn't happen, correct?
Oh, is he referencing something? Amy, the weak punishment he got should indicate to you just how hard it is sometimes to have law enforcement officers really get some kind of ramifications for their actions, which is just another reason why how huge it is for what happened to Michael Proctor and how serious of a problem he was.
I believe that human beings all have biases, but during the investigation, those biases do not affect, especially in this case, they did not affect any outcome of the investigation.
So,
especially in this case, of course, it didn't affect.
Well, I wasn't even talking about this case. I was talking about cases in general. And
Jackson's like, why would you think I was talking about this case? Which, when somebody does that to him, when Bukhenik at one point, it's like, which house? Jackson's like, 34 Fairview. Do you think I was talking about anything else? Bukhenik's kind of doing the same thing. He's like, obviously you're talking about this case, Jackson. But Jackson's like, well, why'd you bring up nefarious? Does it sound nefarious, Ms. McCabe?
Supervisory role in general. Your job as a supervisor is to seek out and make sure that there are no biases in an investigation, correct?
Absolutely.
You want to make sure that any investigation, as a supervisor, any investigation that is under your charge, under your supervision, is done adequately and professionally. Is that right?
Yes, that is right.
And there's a chain of command for that, right? Meaning someone under your charge needs to report up the chain of command to you, and you have supervisors to whom you report, correct?
Yes, it's a paramilitary structure, and it is in order for the colonel to keep command and control over the entire agency of 2,000 plus people, it is absolutely necessary for there be a reporting up and down within the ranks of the Massachusetts State Police.
And you have...
Dina, I agree with you so much. And here's what I try to take solace in. The jurors are normal people. I hope they hear and see him say that, and they find him less credible because of it. Because stuff like that is so annoying. Like I hate when people, it's like, don't treat me like an idiot. You know, that's what I feel like. And I hope jurors think that way when certain witnesses talk as well.
By the way, what's your chain of command? Who did you report to back in 2022?
I directly reported to Detective Lieutenant Tully.
That name,
Especially, you mentioned this case a second ago, especially in a case like this, a homicide investigation, especially in a homicide investigation involving a police officer. You have to maintain.
I heard somebody say if there's no 227 search, there's no conspiracy, but it still could be, I guess, with what you're saying, right? Maybe she's not involved. Maybe she didn't do that search, but is still involved. I don't know. I actually think we'll see how Hank Brennan argues the heart rate. Maybe that's going to be a good point. I have no idea. Oh, Joseph said EDB made a good point. Who connects their Apple Watch to their work phone? I don't have an Apple Watch, so I don't know. But you guys that have Apple Watches, do any of you connect it to your work phone? Joe Flipperhead, thanks for the coverage. Make sure you give Better Oak some crap about the Celtics after he was gloating about beating the Magic. I don't like to kick a man when he's down, but Joe, you make a good point. We'll see, though. I still think they're going to win. I'll bet them Celtics in 7. We'll see.
Your knowledge and intimate knowledge of those under your command, under your charge, to ensure that what they're doing fits what you believe to be the proper protocol. In other words, you're not just going to let people loose. You're going to watch what they're doing and actually supervise them, correct?
Yes, absolutely. We are professionals, and we conduct each and every investigation with that in mind and with the integrity that is necessary.
I mean, this dude just can't stop saying stuff like honor, integrity, professionals, the military. We want to do what's right and find justice and truth. I mean, he's just building this up for Jackson to come in here and just take his bat and knock it out. Like this is the buildup. And unfortunately, the day ended today. Jackson's going to have to kind of build back up to a crescendo tomorrow, because he's giving you all the buzzwords you need to be like, you want to hide Proctor because he's the opposite of integrity. He's the opposite of honor. He's despicable. He's deplorable. He is fired. He's no longer with you. That's why you're here talking to us. But you didn't go everywhere Proctor went. You didn't do everything Proctor did. You didn't talk to everybody Proctor did. I would say stuff like if Bukhenik is going to testify to what Proctor did you know Michael Proctor had video evidence that he put in his file and never shared with the prosecutor? Do you know Michael Proctor had evidence in this case that he should have turned over and didn't? Did you tell him to do that? You didn't do that, did you? But Proctor did. Proctor did a lot of things you didn't do, Bukhenik. I mean, there's got to be a ton of that in the cross. A ton of that.
Use the word I was about to use. That ensures the adequacy of the investigation, correct?
Yes.
To use your word, that ensures the integrity of the investigation. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
As you sit here today, do you believe that this investigation, now I'm going to turn to this investigation, was conducted with professionalism, with competence, at the highest level of integrity?
This investigation was conducted professionally, with integrity, and all the evidence collected, all the statements collected pointed in one direction. There was no bias influence on the evidence, on the information that was collected, or which direction the investigation pointed naturally.
Now, everybody can roll their eyes at that. Everybody can be like, yeah, right. That's what you have to say. You eat it and you say, it's still good, jurors, you should believe it. That's what you have to say if you believe it and you're the cops, right? And you're the Commonwealth. To act like it doesn't exist is foolish. You just have to eat it. Eat it and move on. That's what I would do. That's what I would advise doing. But it seems like at some points they're pretending it doesn't exist. John, I agree with you. But I do think that there are some issues that could come back to bite the Commonwealth if they don't call certain people. The more I thought about it, I would not call the McCabe's, the Alberts, the kids in the house, meaning I wouldn't call any of them. I don't think they do anything for the Commonwealth that's good. Proctor, Tully, those are the ones I would consider, because we've heard their name so much. You don't want to look like you're afraid of them. They're such huge pieces. They could be the reasonable doubt in this case.
Former Trooper Michael Proctor was the person who's the assigned case agent, the lead case agent in this particular investigation, correct?
Michael Proctor was the case officer for this investigation.
He was assigned ultimately.
So he doesn't say correct. He doesn't say no, but he's going to quibble with him. Does a jury care? You tell me, does a jury care? I don't know. I care. I can tell what he's doing. And it's like, dude, You've already buried him enough. You can still say he's the lead case agent. And it's almost like they're trying to do both. They've played it like Bukhenik can testify to everything he did. He's the supervisor, but Proctor was the lead. But they're trying to say he wasn't. We all kind of know he was. And other people have already testified that he was. Belinda.
To use another phrase, as the lead investigator, wasn't it?
I'm not going to agree with you.
Is there a reason that you want to try to distance yourself?
He's just like, you can say all you want. You ain't going to get me to agree with you, lawyer, sir. That's a woof. To say that on the stand with a smirk, like I got you right where I want you. That's what it felt like. Man, we're already at an hour. All right, we got quite a bit left because I want to dig into this cross and I want to talk about if they don't call certain witnesses, what you can't do, what you shouldn't do. And then we got a bunch of questions to answer as well. So hit the like button. We got a pretty big chat right now. We should easily be able to get this video to 20,000 likes. Let's get to 20,000 likes. Hit that like button because we're still rolling. We're still rolling.
Yourself from naming Michael Proctor as the lead investigator in the case. Is there a reason that you want to try to distance yourself from naming Michael Proctor as the lead investigator in the case? Is there some reason?
I am not trying to distance myself. All I'm saying is the term that I use is the case officer. We're simply case managers. There's no leading investigation in any direction.
So in your mind, well, let me ask you this. This case officer doesn't work for that. Synonym would be an investigator, right? He's a detective investigator, right?
He is a detective, yes.
And he was the one who was assigned by the Massachusetts State Police because of his on-call status that night, that morning, January 29, 2022. He was assigned to the case, correct?
Michael,
Yes or no? Assigned to the case. That's all I'm asking.
well, you said a lot before that. So
I said he was assigned to the case. What I said before that was January 29, 2022. He was assigned by the Massachusetts State Police as the case officer for this case, correct?
No.
Who was?
He was assigned to be on call a month prior. Just because he was on call, he was assigned the case as a result. He was not assigned the case right there and then because his assignment began much earlier in the day.
So reality, I don't know that he protected Proctor. I feel like he protected the Commonwealth from former trooper Michael Proctor. That's what I was feeling. That's the vibe I was getting. Netwoman, another 20 memberships. Thank you.
We can do this all day, I suppose. He was on call.
We can do this all day, I suppose. That's what Jackson said. It almost sounds like he's frustrated. I don't know if I would make those comments in front of the jury because you don't want the jury to feel like you're frustrated with this witness. He is absolutely being evasive. Let the jury see it themselves. Keep asking the questions you want to ask. Have patience, right? You got to have patience, which Jackson has been pretty patient this trial, I think.
He was.
Correct?
He was.
Because he was on call, any case that happened to come in would be assigned to whom?
To the on-call trooper that's on the schedule.
Which was whom?
It was Michael Proctor.
Let me just ask you this. Do you believe that Michael Proctor, his involvement in this case, taints the investigation? Tainted the investigation?
No.
Not at all.
The investigation was done with honor, integrity, and all the evidence pointed in one direction only.
Honor and integrity by Michael Proctor.
So he has to put that little piece in there that, and it only pointed in one direction. It only pointed in one direction. And Jackson literally gets him to freeze here. We're listening on 1.5 speed, so it's not going to feel like as long as a pause, but it's a long pause. And then he's like, oh, was that a question? Right after he says, this investigation was conducted with honor and integrity.
The investigation was done with honor, integrity, and all the evidence pointed in one direction only.
Honor and integrity by Michael Proctor.
Was that a question? I'm sorry.
Sure is. Everything I say is a question. Honor and integrity by Michael Proctor, Sergeant? Okay.
Sustain to the comment. Go ahead and ask it again, Mr.
I'll ask you again. You said honor and integrity. Honor and integrity by Michael Proctor. Okay.
I'll allow it.
The investigation was conducted with honor and integrity, and all the evidence pointed in one direction and one direction only.
So, Sergeant Bukhenik, you don't want to answer my question, correct?
I will answer your question, absolutely.
Do you think this case was handled?
So, Meg R, to be fair, AJ can't say the Proctor thing about the turn of it. Here's what I would say. I would ask the guy, you have to set it up, right? Because then you can impeach him with the type of question like that. It's not really impeachment because it's not a statement. But Proctor did a lot of stuff in this case you don't know about, right? Oh, I don't think that's true. That's what I think he would say. And you say, do you know that he didn't turn over evidence he had? Did you know he tried to bury things? You have a good faith basis to say that. If she sustains it, that's fine. I'm asking that question. Are you ratifying that as a supervisor? Do you think that's okay? I'm asking it. I think I have a good faith basis to ask it.
Handled with honor and integrity by Michael Proctor, Sergeant.
The investigation was handled with integrity by Michael Proctor.
You do know that he
Like,
touched.
do you believe he said that with a straight? That's where I would just say the guy's a jerk, but he did the job fine. He got what we needed to point in the investigation in this case.
Or had input in nearly every part of this case, obviously, as the case officer, correct?
He managed the case.
So he had some input.
That's why I'm pretty confident that he would not say that, all this stuff was going on. So again, they argue back and forth. He's like, he didn't do 51% of the work. So therefore, I don't think he was the lead case agent. It was bonkers. Didn't make any sense. So then Jackson goes one by one, turn to this paper. Who signed that affidavit? Proctor. Who signed that one? He's like, oh, I can't read it. It's so bad. I can barely read it. He's like, okay, just flip to who signed it. Who signed it? Proctor, Proctor, Proctor. Who did this report? Proctor. This report, Proctor. Whose name's in this report? Proctor, 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 Proctor. I thought it was masterful. And then he adds in there, you went to go get a video, right? But it wasn't for you. You delivered it to Michael Proctor. I thought that was really well done. And then there was another little battle back and forth where Bukhenik's like, I hate to do it to you. Somebody mentioned it earlier in the chat. And we're going to play a little bit of it here.
His name appears on most of these documents, yes, if not all.
Of the ones that we just went through, he's not just referenced, he's the author.
Mo, acknowledge that like button, please. Acknowledge it. Acknowledge that it's there. You're not ratifying it or saying, haha, it was a good text. You're not saying anything. You're not saying anything about this video. You're just acknowledging that it exists.
Of every single one, correct?
No. Nicholas Garino wrote some of these reports.
Sorry, the author of the search warrant. I asked you to look at Nicholas Garino's report to reference the search warrant that Nicholas Garino referenced in his report, and Michael Proctor was the author of that search warrant, correct?
Again, I hate to do this to you, but
Oh, I don't think you do.
Jackson's like, I don't think you do.
some of these search warrants could not be authenticated. I don't know what these documents were. I didn't read them, so I can't tell you that he was the author. Like what you presented, I can't speak to.
You just made my point. Even as a supervisor, you don't know everything about the Proctor's doing.
That's a lawyer adapting. He's like, I can't tell you looking at these warrants. I don't know because, I can't authenticate them. It's like, exactly. You just proved my point, sir, because your name's not at the bottom of any of them. You don't even know what's going on. Proctor's doing all the work. Really good move by Jackson there.
It's impossible to know everything somebody was doing.
Got it. Especially the case officer on this case, as busy as he was, right?
Busy bee.
I'm sorry?
Especially the case officer on this case, as busy as he was, Michael Proctor, right?
He was keeping us and his supervisors abreast of what was happening, the next step, the search warrants he was writing, the evidence that was being collected, the interviews that are being conducted, court dates and motions and stuff like that.
So he would do the work and then keep you, the word you just used, keep you abreast of that work.
Right, unless I was involved with the investigation myself. We did a ton of interviews together, as I authored some of these reports as well. I said there was 100+ reports.
I do think there were a couple times that Jackson did get a little frustrated today. It's just about being patient, taking your time. It's going to take as long as it's going to take. Sounds like we're ahead of schedule. Sounds like they're not going to call a bunch of witnesses. So I think it is important to take your time, get through everything, and not show the jury that you're frustrated at all. And that's easy for me to say on the outside. I'd be very frustrated. This was a brutal cross. It was like pulling teeth. It was annoying. He kept giving long answers when it should have been a simple yes or no answer. And that is always annoying. He said something like, you looked like John O'Keefe got hit. You said it looked like John O'Keefe got hit with a cocktail glass. And then when he's talking, Jackson objects. After the objection, he gets him to agree to it. And then Jackson kind of goes into, could have been a physical altercation. Based on what you said earlier, you got to investigate that stuff. You just can't take people's words for it. I would reference so many of the things that Yuri Bukhenik said in his own testimony and use it against him about what cops should do, what a good investigation looks like, what a good interrogation looks like. I would use it against him over and over and over again. Thank you, Bob Jr., for gifting 10 memberships.
I don't recall my words exactly, but that sounds accurate to what I might have said.
At least your initial investigation during those early morning hours, those critical hours.
Julie, I'm assuming you said this when he said Proctor did this with integrity, but honestly, it works for so many parts of the cross.
Led you to believe at least that there was a possibility that there was a physical altercation, correct?
Yes.
What steps did you take at that moment to determine whether or not anybody in the house may have been involved in that physical altercation that you thought was a possibility?
That's a compound question. I have to answer it separately.
Answer it however you want to. It's an open-ended question, which is unlike me. What steps did you take?
Usually I like to keep it tight. I like to lock you in. But you said he could have got hit in the face with a cocktail glass. You said it could have been an altercation. So obviously you didn't just think Karen Reed confessed with the "I hit him." I would save that part for argument, though. I wouldn't ask him that last part.
At that moment, to determine whether or not anybody in the house could have been involved in that possible physical altercation that you just described.
We interviewed the homeowner and 2 witnesses that were in that house.
You never went into the house, did you? On January 29th, at least.
I personally did not go in the house.
You did not secure that house or remove the occupants, did you?
Which day?
January 29th. I'm talking about the morning of January 29th.
I did not know.
You did not secure the yard as a crime scene, correct?
And this needs to be done multiple times, right? Because this was very effective in the first trial. You didn't do this, you didn't do this, you didn't do this. Because they have done a much better job of trying to make it seem like they did investigate 34 Fairview and the people inside right when all this happened, and they very clearly didn't. So every opportunity you get with law enforcement up there, the defense should do this. And I think this is so important and needs to be highlighted. You didn't investigate in there. You didn't go interrogate them. You didn't go take pictures. You didn't search the house. And Jackson does a really good job of going through it here.
That's correct.
You didn't conduct any search of that house.
No, I did not.
You didn't take any photographs of the interior of that house.
I did not.
You didn't ask a forensic criminalist to join you and process the house, correct?
That is correct.
You didn't set up a crime scene log to determine who was coming in and going out of the potential crime scene.
I did not.
No one actually documented the crime scene by taking contextual photographs and then close-up photographs, etc., during those early morning hours, correct?
I cannot speak to that. I was not there.
So the answer is you didn't do that. And you didn't cause that to be done.
I did not do that.
Crime scene services section, what is that?
It's a unit, specialized unit on the state police. They are specially trained with documentation, photographs, video, latent fingerprints, foot and tire impressions, footwear and tire impressions. They assist other investigators in documenting and processing scenes.
Did you contact CSSS to process the house or the yard or the area adjacent to the yard?
Which house, sir?
34 Fairview, Sergeant Bukhenik. You think I was talking about a different house?
Yes, I did.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
Let's stick with 34 Fairview.
It's like, why would he be talking about a different house? Jackson likes to do that. Belinda, yeah, I don't think so, but that would be, talk about fireworks. I mean, oh my goodness, that would be wild. That would be wild. I don't really know what are they laughing at him, right? Like when you say they're laughing at him, I'm not sure what is there to laugh at. I'm not positive.
Where John O'Keefe's body was found. Did you call CSSS out to the scene to process that house?
I did not contact crime scene services on January 29th to the area of 34 Fairview Road to the lawn where John O'Keefe's body was found.
You mentioned that you conducted interviews that day, correct?
That's correct.
Where were those interviews conducted?
The first interview was conducted at Canton Police Department. The second, third, and fourth were conducted at a residence in Canton.
So, Rhonda, exactly what we're going through right here. I agree. You're right. They could have gone in and I mean, anything then is just in plain view. You're not necessarily taking pictures and doing a full investigation into the house, but dead cop on a cop's lawn. Did somebody come and just hurt a bunch of cops and were they hunting cops that night? Like that would be a real problem, especially door unlocked, nobody coming out. Eisgul. Even if Karen Reed said she did it, that alone wouldn't prove guilt since it didn't line up with the facts, right? Theoretically, a confession alone doesn't have to be enough to convict somebody beyond a reasonable doubt. Usually it is if it's a good confession and they have enough, evidence, or even if it's circumstantial. If yes, I don't see why they acted like that's the key to the whole case. That comment, confession means nothing. No, if you want my opinion, they know that their evidence is very weak. And so that's why they have to lean so much on that confession. I'm going to jump ahead. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit to when he talks about, oh yeah, it's totally normal for when I'm about to do an interview for somebody else unrelated to this person just shows up for that interview as well.
Can you answer that, Sergeant?
No, Your Honor.
You're a professional investigator, correct?
That's correct.
Homicide investigator, right?
That's correct.
Many years of experience, right? Say yes?
I don't know what many means to you,
No,
but
of course not. How many years of experience do you have?
in homicide?
These are the stupid things to quibble with. These are the stupid things to quibble with. Just say yes. Yes, I have many years experience. Yes, I'm experienced. Yes, I'm a good cop. You've already said we always do things with integrity. We always do X, Y, and Z.
10 next week.
Okay. That's not many.
I didn't answer the first time because I don't know what you would think many is.
Right. Suspects ever lie to you?
Yes.
Suspects lie to you all the time, don't they?
All the time is not accurate. They lie about certain things to create an alibi for themselves and state contradicting facts or fabricated stories.
And if someone
all the
has,
time would mean that they're constantly lying about everything.
you understand the colloquialism all the time?
I
Suspects,
do not know the term colloquialism.
okay.
Multiple terms Jackson had to define for Mr. Bukhenik. I guess they could have laughed at him there, I guess. I don't like to laugh at people. Sometimes in the heat of the moment, it's, definitions of words can slip. Happy Annie could be a problem. I don't know. Were they allowed to actually touch it and like stick their fingers through the hole last time? Does it have like blood on it? Sometimes they're not allowed to touch it, but they're just going to examine it different ways. It's a good question, actually.
Okay, let's try it a different way. If these three individuals were involved in the death of John O'Keefe or knew others who were involved in the death of John O'Keefe, who they were close to, they would have a motive to lie about that, correct?
Objection.
But you took these three individuals
I get where you guys, thank you for telling me where they were laughing. That makes more sense.
just at their word. But you took these three individuals just at their word based on those first three interviews, correct?
No, not correct.
You didn't go in the house. You didn't search the house. We've already talked about that, right?
I did not go into 34 Fairview. No, I did not.
You didn't ask them to come with you down to the station, correct?
That's correct. I did not ask them to come to the station.
As a matter of fact, when you went to interview Jennifer McCabe at her home, Brian Albert happened to be there, correct?
He was there, and I was able to conduct the interview at the house with Brian Albert, yes.
Because I did this job with integrity and honor, I was able to get the interview done still, even though he was there. Sounds like a favor. Sounds like something you wouldn't necessarily do for everybody, especially if somebody you thought was a suspect because you thought he looked like he could have got hit by a cocktail glass. These are the things Alan Jackson is trying to get the jurors to understand and to see with the questions that he's asking.
Did you find that odd?
Absolutely not.
Totally normal for you to conduct a formal interview in a homicide case and have an extra person show up at the house just to be there?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. That's absolutely normal. I bet he thinks it's absolutely normal that Jen McCabe lied to the federal agents about who she called before their interview. Absolutely. He doesn't say it happens sometimes. Like, that's a simple answer. That gets you out of it. There's nothing wrong with that. It happens sometimes. But to go absolutely on you is like, again, I'm critical, right? I'm detail oriented. That's the type of juror I would be. That would bother me. Some jurors would be like, yeah, I believe this cop. I think he's a good dude. So it really depends on the juror.
Cooperating witnesses always try and be assisting. So cooperating
Witnesses always try and be assisting.
witnesses would assist us.
Yeah, especially if, even not this case, right? But especially if they're trying to like point you in a different direction or protect someone or whatever. Yeah, they're always going to be willing to assist.
Use the word always. You didn't know what all the time means. But they always try to be assistant.
Well, they're cooperating. It's in the nature.
They always try to help you out.
Okay, maybe I misspoke. They are cooperating witnesses. So always is such a finite definitive statement. I apologize for using it.
And if
Yeah, it's a little bit smug. It's a little bit smug. Class act beauty. I agree with you.
an investigator will keeping an open mind, right? Open to all possibilities at the beginning of the investigation. Someone that you now are calling a cooperating witness might well be a suspect who's lying, correct?
Yes,
That's a possibility.
That is a possibility, yes.
Okay. They go through some photographs of John O'Keefe's shirt. All right, we're going to watch some back and forth about that. Before we get to that, I'm going to answer a few more questions. He's reviewing some prior testimony. Okay. So detectives have work phones that none of them use to record the interviews, even though it is their policy that that's what they should do. Joanne, can Alan Jackson say to the judge that Yuri is a hostile witness when he was cross-examining him? It doesn't help because you're already allowed to treat him as a hostile witness when you are cross-examining him. To the judge that Yuri's a hostile witness when he's cross-examining him, hit the like. Everyone, thank you, Joanne. You don't usually do that on cross. Jackson almost treats all these people like a hostile witness. Maureen, did you see that the right back pocket of his jeans was ripped? Back pocket wasn't ripped in the CF McCarthy's video, and arm injuries are on the right side. Could the dog have caused both? I don't know. These are factual questions, right? That I don't know. And you have to realize like how many details there are, and the defense has to pick and choose what they're going to focus on and what they're going to argue. Can the defense play clips of Spanky put into evidence in their case in chief? If I was a juror, the shoe nonsense with no explanation would be a deal breaker. They can play clips to add context. Judge Cannoni has already said that. Joanne, after the snowplow came by, wouldn't you think that straw would be gone? I don't know, because they were saying it pushed the snow to the side. I don't know. It could be gone. It could be moved. I'm sure there's some stuff that the plow would have taken with it, right? But I don't know. What? I'm actually catching alive. Sending you so much love, Peter. If the Commonwealth doesn't call Proctor and the defense has to, can his text still come out? I think the answer to that should be yes. I think they are absolutely relevant. They are relevant to show bias, relevant to show his state of mind. They should absolutely come in. If they don't, it's a huge appellate issue. Rebecca, if they are going back for days collecting more evidence, why was the scene not secured, i.e. having a law enforcement officer sit outside? I think this is a rhetorical question because we all know it should have been. It should have been. Should they file a motion to reconsider Easter if they want to? I think the issue is already protected for appeal because they knew exactly how this was going to come out. Reality check. If you already have activated CSI to come to the hospital, why don't you send CSI to the scene, to the incident? Make it make sense. There's just too much they didn't do that they should have done. But we know so much from the first trial. I am not sure it has felt like a mountain of problems in trial 2 yet. Wouldn't the piece of taillight have some salt and snow melt? I'm not sure. Red's daughter, the smugness being shown by the witness when ultimately this is about a death is so appalling. How could anyone believe him? And this is the good one. This is the one they don't want to hide. Do detectives in Detroit, Michigan just keep returning M scenes when it snows? I don't get blaming snow for every investigation. Mississippi Cali Girl, people have said I'm not allowed to comment on that because I'm from Florida. It snows in half the country, and somehow they're still able to solve crimes. Nick, I'm watching from the UK, didn't see the first trial. Why hasn't the prosecution told us what they think happened yet? I don't know what to pay attention to. They want you to believe Karen Reed saying I hit him, so it's over. The accident reconstructionist is the key, most important witness in the entire case. Will Proctor plead the fifth of the defense calls? I don't think so, but we will see. I've been binge watching both the old and new trial. I bet that's interesting. Jen McCabe said that they had ordered food. Wouldn't a delivery driver see John O'Keefe's body? Try again for commitment to break these. Thank you again. Sorry. For commitment to break all these down for us. And that's the other thing of why you call all the people in the house if you're the defense. And this is the balancing work you have to have, right? We're going to have this conversation right now. You call them all to say, none of you saw the accident. None of you heard it. You all walked by him. None of you saw the body, right? That to me is pretty good evidence. And maybe you just ask them that, and that limits what the prosecution can get out on cross. So that's the type of things that lawyers have to think about in determining, am I going to call this witness? Am I not? Gingy Probs, I know it's an adversarial process, but the Commonwealth would have so much credibility if they were just honest about poor investigation and didn't fight every single thing. It's exhausting. I agree. Susie, why didn't they put up police tape around the area while the snow was melting? They didn't secure the scene properly, so any evidence collected could have been tampered with. And that's the point. We just don't want these questions, right? You don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to say, we don't want this to even be a possibility. How do you keep from being a possibility all of the things you guys are saying? Jess M has a theory that the shirt's something glass so you can't see the thickness of the hoodie and punctures your thoughts. I would think if that's an issue, the defense should have argued that it shouldn't be able to be put in glass and should take it out. If no proctor by the Commonwealth, would you call him first or last in your case in chief, or when would you position him? I would not call him first. I'd probably call him in the middle. Potential that Proctor, Higgins, Albert will be unavailable to testify? No way. They would have to make themselves available. Is that even possible outside someone being imprisoned or incapacitated? Yeah, I don't think that's a possibility. I really don't. All right, let's listen to this next chunk of cross, which I found interesting. There's 2 more big chunks I want to play.
Sir, did reviewing that document refresh your recollection as to the date that those items were ultimately bagged and labeled?
Yes, based on the tag on the bag, when I previously looked at it, it appears that the tag was printed on 2/4/22.
And that would be consistent with the time that the items are actually placed in the bag?
I don't know that to be true.
Because you didn't place them in the bag, Trooper Proctor did, correct? I'm sorry, former Trooper Proctor did.
I don't know who placed them in the bag.
But it wasn't you.
I'm sorry, let me correct that. Former Trooper Proctor.
It was not me, no.
But the case officer, Mr. Proctor, had access to that room and was taking control over those clothing items for those 6 days that they were drawing on the butcher paper, correct?
That's not necessarily correct. It could have been the evidence officers bagging the evidence once it's dried and processing it. I highly doubt Trooper Proctor had access to the beast machine to print that label.
Right. I'm not asking.
Clearly not what he's asking. But once again, he's dancing. Yes, you do, which is why I don't think he'd be able to unless there's something I don't know, right? There could be things going on in this case in the background that I don't know about, right? Like with the feds, maybe. Black eyes, head injury, what's your take? I could see a fight, or I could see cracked skull, blood pools behind the eyes, like a lot of the medical experts have testified to. Do you feel biased compared to a layman on evidence? Feel biased? Like, you mean in every case because I'm a lawyer? I definitely think I look at cases differently than jurors, which is why I love getting all of the chat's input. And I've said that from the jump. That's what makes this so interesting. Richard, I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking. They're all different people. They're not like you. They're not like me. They could have one like you. They could have one like me. It's hard to say. It's hard to say.
If he printed the label, I'm asking if he bagged the item and walked it up to the evidence locker and the label was printed up there.
Again, I don't know who bagged the items.
That would be normal protocol, though, correct?
Somebody else bagging the items?
No, the case officer bagging the items. He's the one that seized it along with you. He laid them out on the butcher paper along with you. He would be the one to gather them up. I mean, the evidence officer's not going to come down there and do that without the case officer knowing, correct?
Not necessarily. The evidence officer's responsibility is
Anything's possible.
to handle the evidence. So I don't know who handled the evidence that day.
How would the evidence officer know to go down there? How would he know that there were clothing items being laid out to dry on butcher paper unless the case officer told him?
They would walk by it every day and see it. That's their workstation. So
Right.
they would know that, hey, this evidence is drying. There's only 4 detectives in the office at that time working on this case. We communicate daily. So they would know that, hey, it's dried. Let's bag it up.
Well, that's a lot of speculation, especially from the supervisor.
Well, this is when you have officers testify about their education experience, it is appropriate. It is 2 different things that you're saying in this statement. 2 different things about the feds being hired and in his background and experience.
Literally, you just said, I have no idea who bagged that. They weren't communicating with you, were they?
I was giving you an explanation of what could have happened.
Right. Speculation about what could have happened, right?
Well, I certainly did not bag that item.
Right. But your best estimate would be, knowing the protocols at the MSP and in your unit, would be the case officer who's controlling the items of evidence would have bagged it and submitted it into the evidence locker.
I do not know who bagged it.
So for 6 days, anybody who had access to that room could have handled that clothing in any way they wanted to.
That's correct.
And that includes former Trooper Michael Proctor.
That's correct.
So this was a good question, actually, Judy V. Do you think if the defense calls Proctor, the prosecution will cross? I actually think it depends on how it goes with the defense. If he crushes him, maybe you can get some points back, but then you give him the opportunity to come up and redirect. If you don't think it was as bad as it could have gone, maybe you just say, nope, we're good. See you, Michael Proctor. Get out of here. We have 0 questions for you. We want you to have nothing to do with our case. I don't know if he was saying they were unsigned or just that they were so blurry he couldn't tell what was on them. Yeah, Kimberly, a lot of people asking this. I don't know the answer. I think we'll see what the defense says about it, right? And again, people have a lot of you are asking this exact question about why some clothes are in the plexiglass, some aren't. Can they remove it? How can they look at it? These are questions I don't know how they're doing their procedure in this trial. I really don't know the answer. Yes, happy Mother's Day to all the moms in the chat. I love you all. I'm thankful for you guys. Be the best moms you can be. You have the best job and most important job in the world. You affect the lives of so many people because of what your kids end up doing, and it just goes exponentially out for generations. So we love moms here on The Lawyer You Know.
Do you have any kind of log to document?
You just put the sneaker question. I literally have said nothing about the sneakers. I said if it's important and there's some huge discrepancy, I think the defense is going to bring it out. I don't know. Like that's all I can say about it.
happening or who was handling those items of clothing during that 6-day period before it was bagged into evidence? Any kind of log?
I don't have a document logging the clothing laying out there. It was documented in reports and processing, I believe.
Have
But
you ever seen a log? I'm not talking about a report after the fact. I'm talking about a log, real-time log, indicating who may have come in and handled or touched or
Where's the log? Records, Morty.
manipulated those clothes in that 6-day span before the fact.
I have never seen a log like that, no.
The fact is, we don't have a single document establishing the chain of custody for those items between January 29th and February 4th. That's correct, isn't it?
That is absolutely not correct.
Where's the log of the document logging what happened to it?
We seized the clothing. It was in our possession. It was transferred for processing.
Sergeant, I'm asking you about a log, a written piece of paper, something that looks like this.
You're absolutely wrong. Let me tell you what we did, because once again, we cops here, when we say it, it's true. And I'm not saying they're all lying, but that is not the vibe. That is not how this should work. I didn't have to get that video camera. I knew it was on it. I knew there wasn't going to be any evidence on it. It's like, yeah, there was a log. There was a log. I'll tell you right now who touched it. It's like, you've already said you don't know. You've already said you don't know who bagged it. You don't know who did X, Y, and Z. Could have been Proctor. Could have been somebody else. You've already said that. So you know what would help with that as a log. Then I, as a lawyer, would be able to refresh your recollection, show you the log, and you can tell me who touched it. But listen to what he says about a log.
Yes, it's got writing on it that logs the item between January 29th and February 4th. That doesn't exist, does it?
We did not create a log to document the documentation,
Thank
so it'd be redundant, really.
It would be redundant. That's what he thinks about a log. You know what else would be redundant? A camera recording what somebody testified to. You already have their testimony. Why do you need the camera? It's redundant. Getting another eyewitness. Why would you need to talk to another eyewitness? It's redundant. Putting anything in a report. I'm going to testify about it. Why do I need a report? It's redundant. It's like, no, it's not the reason. It's like not the definition of redundant. It's confirming. It's justifying. It's corroborating. That's the point. Because they make their decisions on an individual basis. Proctor was the wrongdoer. His supervisor didn't actually commit the crime or the bad act, but instead he just acknowledged it.
You indicated on direct examination that you personally participated in 2 searches at 34 Fairview, one on February 4th, one on February 10th. Is that right?
So once they get into it, he says, actually, it was 3, and they argue a little bit about it. They talk about relationship with Brian Higgins, how it's strictly professional. Then they get to Berkowitz. Higgins and Berkowitz had a personal relationship, and we get to some of that very suspect involvement by Berkowitz.
Chief Berkowitz was a shorter guy.
Okay. Do you know who Brian Higgins is?
I do.
What's your relationship with Brian Higgins? Or what was it? I should be more pointed to this, Sergeant. What was your relationship back in 2022, January 2022?
Brian Higgins was a federal agent, and I crossed paths with him on a couple of investigations, strictly professional relationship, a federal agent and a state trooper.
So not a personal relationship, more of a professional relationship.
Correct.
Did you know him to have a personal relationship with Chief Berkowitz?
I did not know.
Didn't Brian Higgins actually tell you and Michael Proctor in an interview that he had a personal relationship with Chief Berkowitz? He called it one of his better friends.
Sustained as the time.
Sure. During the course of your investigation, did you learn, although you may not have personal knowledge of it, did you learn that Brian Higgins and Chief Berkowitz had some sort of a personal relationship?
If you show me a report stating that, I would like to take a look. If it's written in a report authored by me or that I approved, I will take it for to be fact.
As you sit here now,
I'm not going to believe you or agree with you unless I see it in a report that I wrote. Joe Mendoza, if Bukhenik and other troopers insist that the investigation was great and done with integrity, could the defense revisit the motion on bringing their witness to go over police standard protocols? You guys, so many of you are thinking the same thing. This is why I said from the jump, he should be allowed to testify. We knew they were going to say this. They said it the first trial with a straight face. Red Solo cups. Yeah, that's great. That's great. The leaf blower worked amazing. We did a great job. We knew this was how it was going to go. If John O'Keefe was hit by the SUV while holding his phone or having it in his pocket, wouldn't the crash detection feature activate? It's a question for an expert. I'm not positive. So his body stayed out there for what, 6 or so hours, and his body wasn't frozen and blood was wet on his body Did I miss something? Again, a lot of this has to be hammered out by the experts. Triple B, lawyer, have you ever had a frustrated witness that you approach you in the hallway or outside court? This guy seems frustrated at times. No. And a lot of the most frustrating witnesses I've had are cops, and they're not usually going to do that. They're not usually going to do that. Some of them I've become friendly with afterwards. But they think you're the devil as a criminal defense lawyer, and you're trying to put criminals back on the street, and they're doing God's work, and they know that person's guilty, and they're going to do whatever it takes to make sure they go down. Do you think the prosecution is wanting a mistrial at this point? I don't. Cody, hi, Peter. More of a cross-examination question, but if Alan Jackson shows that there are cases with a lead investigator running cases, how bad is that? He wouldn't admit that prosecutor was the lead agent. He's already gotten other people in Canton and MSP to agree that he's the lead case agent. And if he calls Proctor, he can probably ask the same question. And if Proctor says no, I'm pretty sure he said he was in the last trial, so you can impeach him. This is like easy stuff to impeach. Court TV reported Karen Reed said there are no plans for the Commonwealth to call Proctor. Not sure how accurate that is, though. Would Karen Reed even know? I have no idea. The lawyers are gagged, so my guess is they're talking to Karen Reed, and then she's talking to the press. Did you hear Yuri Bukhenik say the driveway at Karen Reed's parents' house is about 60 feet? Could that be where the triggering event occurred, key cycle 1162? I don't know. I guess it's possible. I don't know. If Hank Brandon doesn't call Proctor and Proctor is fine being found in contempt of court, if the defense attempts to call him, what could be the remedy? They could literally handcuff him and drag his butt to court. Corey, only slightly off topic, Peter. Does it seem unreasonable that Karen Reed chose a couple of random EMTs to confess thrice or more to after attempting to establish a 50-plus nasty calls alibi? Please answer me, mi amigo. That's the long con. That would be wild to me if that was the case. I guess it's possible, but I don't know. That seems like a criminal mastermind.
You don't have a memory of that conversation with Brian Higgins?
Do I have a memory of having a conversation with him and him sharing that information with me?
That's it.
I don't have a memory of him sharing that information, but if you have a report that was authored by me or Michael Proctor or any trooper in our office that says that, I will take it as gospel. And
Timeout. Zach Morris, timeout. This guy just said, if you have a report written by me or Michael Proctor that says something in it, I will take that as gospel. For those not religious people with us, the gospel is the most important thing. It is what sets you free. It is the good news. You believe it, you trust it, you build your whole life on believing it as absolute truth. And he would take this report as that absolute truth if he or Michael Proctor put it in a report. Well, Mr. Bukhenik, Trooper Bukhenik, excuse me, it's Mr. Proctor and Trooper Bukhenik. Would it surprise you to know that multiple witnesses have come up here and said what you cops put in report is absolutely wrong? Even those cooperating witnesses like Jen McCabe. They say you cops make mistakes in reports all the time, especially former trooper Michael Proctor. I couldn't believe this was one of these things where I was woofing, I was jaw dropping. I was like, no way he said that. No way he said that that's gospel truth. As long as here Proctor wrote it in there. Whoa.
With him and him sharing that information with me?
That's it.
I don't have a memory of him sharing that information, but if you have a report that was authored by me or Michael Proctor or any trooper in our office that says that, I will take it as gospel and testify to it.
Okay. Well, I don't want to take up the time to look for it. We'll put our hands on that.
You will take it as gospel and testify to it. If I'm Alan Jackson, I'm going home. I'm looking for some problems in the reports. I'm saying, Bukhenik, I want you to testify to this. Testify to this right now. I have to see the report. Okay, here's the report. Who wrote that report? Proctor. Gospel, right? The Gospel of Michael Proctor, chapter 1. Read it. Testify to it because you said you will testify to it. He just said he will testify to it. The lawyers are going to go back and do some research, I think, because he gave them a gift with that statement. We are way over time. I got to wind this up here. We only have a few minutes left of the video, and then I'll answer some more questions.
In the meantime, let me ask you a few other questions. You were contacted and told to respond to 34 Fairview because Chief Berkowitz had been driving by and saw something while he was driving by, correct?
On which day, sir?
February 4th.
I'm sorry?
February 4th.
Yes, he indicated he was driving by and saw a piece of potential evidence.
And he was driving by in a car at speed, correct?
I would take that to be factual. I mean, if he's driving by, I would take it to be in a car
And
at speed.
did you question Chief Berkowitz about, by the way, about how old was Chief Berkowitz when you met him out at 34 Fairview in 2022?
How old?
How old? Estimate. Was he in his 50s, 60s, 70s?
I have no idea how old Chief Berkowitz was.
He indicated to you that he was driving by and saw a small piece of red taillight from his car. Is that right? Objection.
Sustained.
He indicated to you that he was driving by and saw a red something from his car, correct?
Objection. Sustained.
Did you question Chief Berkowitz after you learned this information about him driving by? Did you question Chief Berkowitz about how he could possibly see a piece of red plastic from his car?
No.
Did you question Chief Berkowitz about why he was driving by 34 Fairview in the first place?
No.
No, totally normal. Why wouldn't he be? Oh, because he's recused from interviews only? No, why wouldn't he be? I think that's great. I told everybody, drive by when you can. I think I forgot to say that. He said, I told everybody the evidence is going to reveal itself. Drive by 34 Fairview. What did he call it? A targeted drive by or something? What did he call it? I don't know where it is in my notes, and we're already so far over time. But he's like, oh, I told them all, you drive by 34 Fairview because that evidence is going to reveal itself.
Did you question Chief Berkowitz about the fact that his department had been conflicted from the case, at least in part, because of a, as you put it, a perceived or possible perception of a conflict of interest?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question, please?
Did you question Chief Berkowitz about whether or not he was aware that there was a conflict of interest between Canton PD and this investigation?
No, any question, no.
Did you think that was important at the time to talk to him about that conflict of interest?
No.
Because just days earlier,
No, because he does not question cops. He doesn't question cops, whether it's Albert, whether it's former Trooper Michael Proctor. If he put it in a report, it's gospel. Katie's like, why is nobody friends with Higgins anymore? I have no idea. Can't confirm or deny.
the Sergeant, the Canton Police Department had in fact recused itself from interviews because of potential conflict of interest. Right?
To prevent any perceived conflict of interest, they recused themselves from being involved in interviews. I wasn't pairing up with Chief Berkowitz to interview the taillight piece. I mean, I don't.
No, I didn't figure that you were going to interview the taillight piece.
Jackson getting a little salty. I think Judge Cannoni has said the defense will be able to play their clips that they need to for context. I think they are going to be able to. So we can just agree to disagree on that. And we'll see what happens. It's not a big deal. Net woman, 50 more for the overtime. All right. I think I just have like 2 more minutes of the video, and then I'm going to answer some questions before we get out of here. If you guys have to leave because it's going too long for you, I like to keep these shorter. Didn't work today. There's just so much to get through with such an important witness. Make sure you hit that like button, guys. I appreciate you hanging with me. We got a little bit longer.
I'm trying to get to a point. 3 or 4 days after, 5 days after, 6 days after, Canton PD recuses itself from the investigation, parts of the investigation because of a perceived conflict of interest. The brother of the homeowner being a detective, the chief of that department drives by in a car and supposedly sees a piece of plastic. Right?
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Sustained.
Was your understanding, at least at the time, that the whole purpose of the recusal was so there would not be a perception of a conflict of interest, to avoid that?
I didn't give it much thought of.
You want to avoid the impropriety, the appearance of impropriety, and of course you didn't give it much thought. Like that's just these officers. It's like they make their own rule. Every officer is just not like this. Okay, it's just not like this. But some of the stuff they testified to is mind-boggling. It's truly mind-boggling.
The understanding why there was a recusal. I was told that they're not going to conduct interviews with us, and me being on a mission of conducting this investigation, assisting with this investigation, collecting evidence, I just knew I needed more manpower. And the Canton police, being, having recused themselves, weren't going to be available to provide that manpower to conduct interviews.
And yet, it was the chief of that very department that was standing out in front of 34 Fairview when you pulled up that morning.
With his detectives, they were at the location. They weren't standing.
Worse with his detectives. What do you mean? Saying like that's a good thing with his detectives. Why is that good?
Outside, they were in their vehicles because it was raining really heavily.
Well,
Can we end this?
we can, Your Honor, sure.
All right, so Sergeant, bring in.
And that was the end. And we're coming back tomorrow, Friday, to finish the cross of Yuri Bukhenik. Let's get to some more questions. Wild, the Commonwealth prep a witness. Would the Commonwealth prep a witness on their physical appearance? Yuri Bukhenik seems to be trying to look calm and relaxed, but looks very tense. They could. Yeah, that's something you can talk about with a lawyer. Why call everyone who was with Julie Nagel and then not call Julie? Wouldn't this be confusing for the jury? Especially because she saw the blob, right? She saw the blob, but she was also pretty drunk. So I don't know. If I was the defense, I definitely would not call her. You got everything you needed from the other people, I think. Trish. Okay, so you don't call most of the McAlberts, but what about Brian Higgins and Brian Albert, aka the Butt Dial Brigade? I think I probably would call Brian Higgins. He goes back to Canton, he swipes, he's on the phone. Who's he calling? Impeach him. A lot of sketchy things with him. The relationship with him and Karen, the scuffling, whatever they want to get into that video. I do think you can get a lot out with Brian Higgins, and he walks by where the body should be and doesn't see it. Barclay. Peter, what do you think of Karen saying the Commonwealth are not calling Proctor on the courthouse stairs? Will AJ be mad at her for that? She said it. I think it's been widely reported, so I don't think he's angry about that. Chop Trials. What if Higgy went and got a Faraday bag at CPD? Could they have moved the phone with it showing data? It sounds like it would not have picked up data if it was in the Faraday bag, according to Hyde. Lens, if the prosecution don't call witnesses like Higgins, Albert, Proctor, and the defense calls them, are the prosecution only able to cross on topics covered in direct? Yes. Or does it allow the prosecution to cross on everything? Only on what was covered in direct, but usually there's pretty wide latitude because the direct is going to hit a lot of topics. Amber C, I'm new to the case. Enjoy listening to you every day. Thank you. This cop made me squirm. Can the cops get in trouble for the way they handled this case? Yes, and a lot of them did, including him. Ben, the taillight in the yard is solid documented evidence for the Commonwealth, whereas one shred of evidence, anything was planted. I think they're just arguing that it's a possibility because it wasn't secured. Proctor was able to go into the Sally Port whenever he wanted. They don't have any pictures of the taillight before. I don't think the defense has proven that the taillight was planted beyond a reasonable doubt. I don't think they will ever be able to prove that. I don't think any jury would ever say that that is confirmed to have happened. That's not the definition of reasonable doubt, though. And that goes into this investigation. Can they eliminate that reasonable doubt? Turtle Boy says, I think it's Turtle Boy, right? Somebody else said TB, and I think they meant Yuri Bukhenik, but says BA, BH, CA, MP, and BT will not be called by the Commonwealth. How do you feel that will affect both sides? I think the defense has decisions to make. Who are they going to call and why? I think you have to call some of them. I think you have to call Proctor and maybe call Higgins. And if you can get everything out about Higgins, I know people say call Nicole Albert to get the Proctor connection. So the defense is going to have to go witness by witness and say, put a whiteboard up. What's the good we're going to get from this witness? What's the bad? And weigh the pros and cons and make your decision. If the defense calls Proctor, how likely will it be for them to be able to deem him as hostile? I mean, I think almost guaranteed. I really think almost guaranteed. If this is a conspiracy, what would be the chances Proctor called and tell everything? Many whom has got on the stand has thrown him under the bus. Yeah, a couple people have thought that. I think highly, highly unlikely. Red's daughter, don't you think it's odd the amount of evidence they have combined in one bag together? Shouldn't pieces be individually packaged? Yes, but at least it wasn't a Stop and Shop bag. LK, has any witness been called down to the station and questioned in front of a camera? I don't think there was any recorded interviews. And that's their policy, which once again, that's the problem. Those are some of the problems I have. Where everybody's like, oh, it probably happened. It's like, yeah, but they could have confirmed it. The Ghost, what's the likelihood the defense can call Proctor as a hostile witness? Very high, very likely. Azam, Peter, if Karen Reed's acquitted, does it mean the case closed, or could they do another investigation to find out what really happened? Case closed against her, but they could theoretically open up an investigation and charge more people. It just almost never happens because the biggest reasonable doubt to Jen McCabe or Brian Albert or anybody else they wanted to investigate is it was Karen Reed, and there's probably enough there to be a reasonable doubt for anybody else, and they all have the bad investigation to help their case too. Hi, Peter. Can you give a shout out to all your nurses in the chat for Nurses Week? Happy Nurses Week to my fellow nurses. Yes. Happy Nurses Week. My mom is a nurse, and multiple aunts are nurses. Stephanie Coker, who was the officer with the Allo camera who lived across the street from Brian? It was the deputy chief. I can't remember his name. Eleni G. It was not Berkowitz. Do you think the Commonwealth or the defense watch you? It's funny you should mention that. I've gotten some emails that make me think maybe somebody's watching. Maybe somebody's watching. Rebecca, we can do better liking this very overtime video. Yes, very, very. Hit that like button, folks. Jen, that smirk on his face says a lot. It does to me too. It does to me too. Matthew, Don't forget, I saw the small piece of taillight while driving in the rain. Dude, that is bonkers to me. That's bonkers to me. Austin, my father was killed years ago. I'd be mad as H if the cops handling his case were this way. I agree. I completely agree. Gray space, things I don't think you covered. No pics of the taillight pieces after February 3rd and no report on February of 2022. Taillight until November of 23. Thoughts? It's bad. You know, the taillight stuff really doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but I'm not sure that it was like broken and planted. It's just like, why is it this hard? Why is it this hard is my main thought. Maureen, have you seen trial 4 also happen in Boston? I have not. Who will walk us through your upcoming case? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. We'll see what we talk about, what we don't. At this point, we're not going to make any further comments on it. Chop trials. I meant without it showing data. Well, there you go. That's how they moved John O'Keefe's phone with, so you're saying at 12:32, they put it in a Faraday bag and moved it all around? I would be thinking ahead. But I guess it's possible. If the Commonwealth doesn't call Proctor, which I can't believe they could even entertain that, would you call him? Absolutely. I think you have to. It's just too important for your case. Bones, because if they don't call him, they can't argue a lot of things in closing because it's facts, not in evidence. Every time Bukhenik says, I wasn't there, AJ should respond, and nobody, including former Trooper Michael Proctor, reported to you. It's a good point. There's a lot of ripe things for them to ask Yuri Bukhenik. All right. I almost never do a 2-hour video. So thank you for hanging with me. Love you guys. Hit that like button. I will see you all tomorrow, Friday. Probably, if not, I have Mavericks football game at night. So if I'm not able to do a live either before or after, maybe we do an early Saturday morning live, but we will talk about what happens on Friday. Hit that like button, subscribe. Make sure you guys subscribe. We're pushing towards 500K. It'll be so fun to get there. I appreciate you. Till next time, I'm out of here. Peace. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And don't forget to check out the Lawyer You Know podcast with new seasons dropping every quarter. If you have a case you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, The Lawyer You Know.